All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual Spring 2021 Study Abroad Fair. My name is Scott Pearson. I'm the Director of the Office of International Education, and it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the folks that are going to be leading the faculty-led program to Cuba, Cultural Competence and Heritage in Cuba. We have Dr. Kimmery Newsom. Kimmery, yeah. And we also have a representative from API, Jason Cuba.
Hello.
So in terms of the format for today's brief presentation, I'm going to share a brief video that Kimmery and Jason helped us put together with Andrea Morse. It's only 3 minutes, so it should be short, sweet, and very pointed. And after that, we'll have a chance to dive into some of the details with a great Q&A session. So bear with me as I get the technology in place. We'll get started here. Oh, actually, I'm going to have to stop that because I need to get. You always have to click that little button to get the sound to play here. So one moment. There we are. This should be it now. All right. Let me actually hold on 1 second here and make sure I get the right video. I think this is it. Are you seeing faculty in 3?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kimmery Newsom, and I'll be leading a group of students to Cuba in winterm 2022 on a program called Cultural Competence and Heritage in Cuba. It is the first in a series of heritage-focused study abroad programs. On this program, you will take the 3-credit course, HGFS 335, Critical Cultural Competence, which satisfies the Res A requirement while exploring Havana, Cuba. This program will provide an incredible opportunity for you to become more aware of your own racial and cultural heritage, look at systems of privilege and oppression, and consider how values, biases, and assumptions influence the connection with people. The estimated cost for the program is $4,400. You will learn about the history and cultures of African Americans, American Indians, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, and Euro Americans as you visit the Fine Arts Museum, the San Jose Market, the Literacy Museum, and Afro-Latinas, a project aimed at intervention for development, and sociocultural transformation, among other locations in and around the capital city of Cuba. You will also stay in a residencia, a home-like environment where you can get a first-hand glimpse into the homes and the lives of Cubans. The course objectives include helping students demonstrate knowledge of the histories, cultures, and racialized experiences of African Americans, American Indians, Asian Americans, Latino and Hispanic Americans, and Euro Americans, and create an understanding of how socio-historical contexts shape identities and relational dynamics. This course, as it is delivered in Cuba, will have content that is consistent with this objective and relate to ways that Cuba gained its independence, issues of racism and ethnic discrimination, and colorism within the Cuban culture. Students will learn the history of Cuba and the need for cultural competence regarding the Cuban culture. If you are interested in this program, please reach out to me at newsomk@uwstout.edu or the Study Abroad office at studyabroad@uwstout.edu, and check out the program's description on the website uwstout.studioabroad.com. There you can also see the cost estimate and the deadline for applying. I hope you'll take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and join me in winterm 2022.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a great introduction to this fantastic program.
Thank you.
We have this is something that we've obviously been planning for quite some time. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we've had to postpone the running of this program. But we are very excited. We have high hopes that winter of 2022 will be mobile again and offering exciting, enriching experiences. Would you like, in terms of introducing you, Jason? I mentioned your name. I mentioned that you're with API, but for folks that are joining us or that are seeing the recording of this video, API is playing a vital role in this relationship in that they are sort of the on-the-ground coordinator, the licensed operator, so to speak, within country, right? And maybe you could talk a little bit about the role that you play and your personal experience with leading programs to Cuba, so that folks on our side can better understand how that plays out, that relationship plays out.
Sure, definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening. And I'm excited about this program very much. I've been excited from day one, and I really hope it gets off and on the ground in 2022. I can't wait for it. So yes, Scott, as you said, API is an education abroad provider or an organization that works in a lot of countries. And Cuba is definitely one of our hotspots, if you will, especially for faculty-led programs of this nature. It's such an enriching and amazing cultural location, and there's so much history and depth of knowledge that's there. It's just one of my absolute favorite places to be. The role that API plays in this is that we help organize the logistics, we help organize the housing, the guest lectures, the museum visits, the cultural things that are part of the class components that Dr. Newsom has shared with us, that we try to enhance the experience and create different opportunities that allow her to be able to deliver the content of the course in a really enriching way. So we're really a partner in the process of this, but we are on the background a little bit because this is the UW-Stout program and it's Dr. Newsom's program. So we're there to help, we're there to support, we're there to provide all the guidance that we can, but also to stand back and let the learning happen, if you will, in and outside of the classroom that's there. I've been very fortunate to be able to travel with 5 different programs to Cuba so far. So I've been a part of multiple faculty-led opportunities there on the ground. Some of them have been about cultural competence. Other ones have been focused on healthcare or business or Spanish language acquisition. So I'm incredibly fortunate to have been able to travel to Cuba as much as I have and feel like I'm in a second home when I'm there. I will be, or more than likely, 99% chance that I will be the person with you on the trip from API, but there's also someone that we have that is our full-time resident director in Cuba. Her name is Emily Moran, and Emily lives in Cuba. She's actually an American, but she lives in Cuba. She's been there for quite some time, and so she's an amazing resource as well. So the one thing that's great about Cuba is that you have a lot of help and support with you. So you have a program leader, so that would be me, our resident director, Emily, and then we also have a Cuban guide that's with us the entire time as well. So in addition to all the extra things we're doing, you have all these different people to ask questions and help support you and just really make sure that you're having the most exciting and enriching time that you possibly can when you're there.
Excellent, thank you. And one of the things I've been trying to spotlight with a lot of our programming is that this faculty-led model is so perfect because it's an opportunity for those of us who haven't traveled overseas to engage in sort of a first experience where our faculty member here at Stout is teaching the course and has had a hands-on approach to incorporating the learning with the setting, and in this partnership in particular with all of the logistics and everything coordinated by our friends at API. There's really nothing to worry about. From guidance on the process of how to go about getting your passport and how to get the authorization to make this all happen. It's all there. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that aspect too, how, where will we be staying? What will we be, obviously, Kimmery mentioned a lot of the exciting places that we're going to be seeing and some of the things we're going to be doing, but what's the daily life like? What should we expect when we land in Cuba? And then as we approach, day 1, day 2, day 3? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So you make a good point about the helping get everything situated. There's some certain regulations and rules that are involved with traveling to Cuba, including the obtaining of a particular visa. And so that's all done for you. So API does all that for you. And so the person, again, hopefully me, who will be traveling with you from the US to Cuba, will actually be traveling with you with those visas. So from the ground, from the minute you arrive in Cuba, we have all the documentation. That's all taken care of for you. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Once we get there, we'll transport to our residencia, or what they're called in Cuba is casas particulares, which is kind of like the Crosby. It's a private home that a Cuban family operates, but they serve as a residencia for groups of students that we work with. We work with a particular set of families that we've been working with for a number of years, and we have great relationships and experiences with them. You will live in these homes, and you will eat a lot of your meals there. Most of your meals will be eaten here. You will have a breakdown of rooms depending on what that looks like specifically. Varies a little bit from home to home, but a couple of people sharing a room, up to sometimes four, with a bathroom. And then you have this house that you get to use and live in this house and speak with the family that runs that house and get to know them and be part of their daily lives as well. The program itself is really structured to keep you busy and to make sure that you're getting the most that you can out of your time in Cuba. That being said, there is still some free time that you have to explore a little bit too. So one thing that's really great about Cuba and Havana in particular, being a large city, is that it's very, very safe. There's very little crime in Cuba. You obviously need to be smart and make good choices, and we go over all of that and whatnot, but it is a really fun city to explore and to walk around. So in the free time that you have, we'll show you where there's some different cafes and things that you can go to and hang out with the local Cubans in an ice cream shop, if you will, or things like that in the Malecon, and walk along the beach or in along the seashore, along the Malecon, the seawall. So there's a lot of fun, exciting things you get to do that are, just being there and just kind of taking it all in and experiencing it. One thing that students do find a little bit interesting about Cuba is that you don't have access to Wi-Fi everywhere you go. So what I love that about Cuba personally, because you really get to disconnect and you really get to take everything in the moment that you're there, and you don't have the ability to constantly be checking your phone or whatnot. So that doesn't mean you don't have access. So we'll make sure we can show you how to get access to Wi-Fi when you need it. But it's a great opportunity to really kind of disconnect and truly take advantage of the location that you're in.
Excellent, thank you. How about for students that have interest in this program, but they might not have any Spanish language ability? Is that something to be concerned about?
No, not at all. In fact, I would say that other than my one Spanish language focused program, every student that I've traveled with in Cuba has, with some exceptions, has very minimal or no Spanish background. So you have several people who are bilingual that are going to be with you on the program. So myself as a Spanish speaker, Emily is bilingual as well, and our Cuban guides are all bilingual speakers too. So there's always going to be someone there to help translate for you. It is possible that the people that live and work in the home won't speak a lot of English. So that's a great way to kind of practice a little bit, but they're all very kind and patient, and you can do a lot of communicating with just your hands or your body language a lot too. So there's always someone there to help though. So don't let language be a barrier whatsoever. There's a lot of great opportunities to still have a great experience.
Great, thank you. I know another question that many students might have is the relationship between the United States and Cuba has been fictitious, I guess, to say the least, over the last few years. And then, of course, recently there was a redesignation of the state sponsor terror. When students are there on the ground, how are they typically treated? Are they treated with open arms? Is there a significant interest in getting to know them and hear their perspective? Talk to us a little bit about what we should expect in terms of the way that we're treated, and of course, how much or how little we can talk about issues that maybe are a little bit more of a global, national type scale.
Sure. This is a great question. I'm really glad that you asked this, Scott, because this is one of my favorite things about being in Cuba. Growing up where I did and the history that I learned, the relationship that the U.S. has with Cuba has always painted Cuba in a particular picture as having kind of an adversarial relationship with the U.S. And on a political scale, we do. Let's be honest, it is pretty adversarial. But on a person-to-person level, Cuba is friendly with Americans. Cuban people love American people. They love being able to share their culture. They love being able to educate and to learn from us at the same time. One of my favorite things is being in the Museum of the Revolution and seeing students read a different side of history or a different perspective on something that happened, and seeing that there's two sides to different stories, and that maybe we need to find a way to find a common ground to see where we are more alike than we are different. So one of my favorite things is just talking with people and hearing their sides of things and learning from them and hearing how they feel about things. They're interested in our lives. They're interested in knowing, again, what makes us similar rather than what brings us apart. There are certain things that we are probably a little bit more open to talk about than what the Cuban population is. Politics are interesting, but it's more of a conversation about American politics than Cuban politics. I remember the last time I was there, I was in a taxi, and I was asked by every taxi driver that I had how I felt about President Trump. And just a very interesting conversation. They were very curious to know about that. I mean, even though their access to internet and news and whatnot is more limited, there's still a lot of great people that are learning a lot of wonderful things, very educated readers in Cuba and whatnot. So it's very feasible that you will have really in-depth conversations about your political values and structures and feelings with a random person that you might meet on the street at some point in time. So it just go prepared to know that you will probably be asked questions, but it's all meant in the spirit of sharing and the spirit of learning about each other so that we can bridge the divide that has existed between our two nations for such a long time. That's what I love about going to Cuba so much, is that there's an opportunity for us to figure out why we haven't gotten along as well as we have and how we can on that person-to-person level. And hopefully it can switch into the political climate as well, and we can get to that same level of partnership and cooperation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Another question that I think our students might be thinking about is, when we go abroad and we're in a country like Cuba, it places us a little bit outside of our comfort zone. We're staying with a family, right? And it's a different setting. We're not going to maybe have some of the same comforts that we would have, back home. The food, of course, is very different. I'm sure it's very delicious. Now, you're originally from the Midwest here, Jason, and maybe you can talk to some of the differences that we can experience when we're there. Is it going to be incredibly spicy? Is there going to be something that I think we'll enjoy eating?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the spicy question, it's funny that you say that because there is really no spice in Cuban food. It's not spicy at all, to be honest with you. And I think that surprised a lot of my students, especially I was with a group of students from San Diego, and they were very upset that they didn't have any hot sauce with them. They were used to having hot sauce on everything and they didn't have anything with them. So the house that they were staying in, the father was actually a chef and he prepared them a hot sauce with some peppers that he had in Cuba, but it was not something that was part of the regular cuisine. But the one thing that's really interesting about Cuba is that a lot of the food that you eat is whatever is fresh. So there's a market that day and they may have a particular run on a particular type of vegetable. And so you might eat that vegetable for a couple of days in a row or a few days in a row. And then the next time you go back, they might have a different vegetable. There's a lot of rice and beans that are part of the diet. That's a very big staple. And then there's a lot of meat as well. I'm actually vegan, so going to Cuba is a very interesting process because there's a lot of meat that's included, whether it be chicken or beef or pork even as well. But we can always accommodate every dietary restriction. So I always eat plenty whenever I'm there. I also love fresh fruits and vegetables, so there's lots of that. But I think it's interesting because the food is so good and it's so freshly prepared for you. The families that you live with will be preparing the food right for you. So breakfast can be simple as some bread and toast with some incredible Cuban coffee. If you like coffee, you will absolutely love coffee in Cuba. It's super, super good, although bring a lot of toothpaste because there's a lot of sugar and you will want to brush your teeth frequently. That's one thing I will say. But there's that wonderful experience, and it's about the event of it, and it's the family style. Usually there's a lot of family style dining and things of that nature that takes place, but there'll be some really good things you get to try, new vegetables that you might not have heard of, some root vegetables and things like that. So, but it's in one of my favorite ways to learn about culture is through food. So,
excellent. Jason, one additional question that kind of on that same note. You've now done the program 5 times and counting. Hopefully will be your 6th time. Maybe you'll have a 7th by the time that our program runs. What do you see as some of the biggest takeaways in terms of when students experience a program like this and come back? I'm sure that there's a lot of change that takes place. It's very eye-opening. What do you see from time and time again when you lead these programs as some of the biggest observations for student growth and development from a program like this?
Sure. So I think there's a couple of different areas that I think really Cuba has a really strong impact on students. Not that it doesn't in everywhere, but I think in particular these are things in Cuba. Time and again, we hear from students, specifically students who are not necessarily white students, that they're really had a chance to explore their identity in a different way, and that they were able to look at themselves in a different light in a space that didn't look at them the same way that they were looked at in the US. So it's a personal growth opportunity for students in ways that I've not heard other students describe, comparatively speaking, from other programs. I think every student has that aha moment, whether on a program, or we want them to anyway, to have that aha moment, but exploring their own identity and looking at Cuba, who has such a diverse society in such a small location, and looking at the historical things that country has gone through and all the different things. It's almost like they come back saying it was a safe space for them to explore their identity in a different way. And it's been a really personally enriching experience for me to be part of that, to see students go through that process. So I think that's one big piece of it, is that more so than many other locations, I feel like the students who go to Cuba come back with a renewed sense of who they are, and they were able to see themselves in a different way. The other side that I think is really impactful is that students come back understanding better what privilege is, because even the students who may not have the same privilege as everyone here have more privilege than some of the people that they meet when they're in Cuba, and understanding that that you don't need that to be happy, and that we don't need to do all the things we do to be productive members of society and to do these wonderful things. And they feel coming back with a new sense of, I need to take a step back and look at what I have and be grateful for what I have, because I know that someone else may not be in that same situation. I mean, even me as a group leader, I have realizations all the time. I was having coffee with our Cuban guide, and I was sitting there, we had coffee, and I realized that my coffee and his coffee was approximately half of his month's salary. But to me, it was 2 cups of coffee. That's what I got. And so it was a really interesting, but he also phrased it in a way that said, you have to remember that it's a totally different world. He's like, I'm not feeling upset because you did this, and that's just, we grew up in 2 different places. My culture is different from yours. I don't feel anything bad about you spending money on me buying a coffee. He's like, that's just 2 different places that we came from. And so it really helped me frame it a little bit, and accepting that I acknowledged where I was coming from and what I was able to do, but also where he was coming from and him sharing his culture with me in that sense.
Amazing insight. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And Kimmery, what are you looking forward to the most about running this program?
Well, there are several things, obviously. The main thing that I really appreciate about the opportunity is that we will be living among the people. And that's something that I think would, to your point, Jason, that's something that I think would kind of warrant some soul searching in a lot of ways. You give the coffee example. I mean, there's students who, may come from backgrounds where there's not a whole lot of money, which is the purpose of this, type of program. But they would probably be able to afford a cup of coffee, and it wouldn't set them back. And so, having that experience and having these conversations, but also one of the goals that I have for the program and for the course is that, we demystify a lot of these ideas that we have about what it means to exist in a country that has all but banned people from the US to enter, and has almost closed borders unless you have the special privileges. And we're really blessed to be able to have this opportunity to travel, because, API has the access on the ground, and that's really helpful for us to have the experience. And so I think, that's one of the things for sure. And, what a privilege to be able to teach a lesson about a place you just visited, the history that you've watched, take place sometimes right before your eyes. And then also just really looking back in the culture's history and being able to talk about that right then and there in context. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity, not only for me as, a teacher and an educator, but also for, students who are joining the program to have an opportunity to live the history and to dive in deeply, instead of it just being in a textbook, but they just walked through it and they able to see it with their own eyes. And, really have a candid discussion, about those things. And so, so I'm looking forward to that for sure. I'm looking forward to, the food, looking forward to, just really learning about the culture, it being immersed in it myself, because this will be a first for me too. And so I think, by bringing the culture, bringing the students to the culture is what the critical cultural competence really is about: existing within a culture and understanding how to take a critical lens and, really be open to learning about what you don't know. And so that's something those are some things I'm really looking forward to. I could keep going, but those are definitely the ones that stick out to me.
Excellent. Amazing. I've spoken with quite a few people about this particular opportunity, and time again, I say, do you have any extra room in suitcases? Can I go too? Everybody from our Spanish language instructor here, Dr. Kevin Anzolin, to friends and family. This is just such a unique opportunity. And, I can't encourage strongly enough that students take part and look a little bit deeper into it and see if it's a good fit, a good match for them. One thing that I also think is important to note is that this particular program is sponsored by, in part, from the U.S. Department of State. We had applied for a grant and were successfully awarded some additional funding that's going to be put into this program. It helps us to subsidize the cost slightly, but it's recognized by the U.S. government and supported by the U.S. government. That's an important distinction, I think, for potentially parents that are thinking about, well, why are you going to Cuba? And this is something that is embraced. Our government sees it as an opportunity to share not only culture, but to share some of our democratic ideals and learn from the people there in the country. And as you mentioned, Jason, it's a great way to make an impact with the families that we stay with. And I know that's one of the missions of the way that API develops these programs, is that it's that people-to-people interaction and helping the local communities in every way that we can as part of the program. So great. Well, I think we're almost out of time, but I know I have Andrea and Taylor on the line. If either of you have any questions or anything to add to discussion, or any closing remarks, Jason or Kimmery, to encourage and incentivize people to look further into the opportunity, those are welcome as well. Yeah.
I just want to say I am so excited for this, and this is an amazing program. I love the itinerary. I love the activities. I've done basically everything that's on the itinerary, and I will never stop doing them as much as I can, as many times as I can. So this is, Kimmery, I don't know you that well yet, but I hope to get to know you better. But this is an amazing faculty going on an amazing program. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm jealous that you get the opportunity, but I hope to be part of it as well. So I would really encourage you to consider this, and hopefully you'll find Cuba to be an amazing location to study this particular concept as well.
Excellent. And I should make one more note, and that is, through this State Department funding, our plan is to send Kimmery in advance to hopefully go with API to check out and to do a run through all the exercises, all the activities. And that's just one of the extra benefits. I did mention just before this program started with our friends Jason and Kimmery that the Study Abroad Office has generated some additional scholarship funding in our last day of giving back in December, and we're planning on announcing additional scholarships that will be available for students. So we're really hopeful that we'll have a nice group of students that are ready to take part, and can't thank you both enough for joining us today as part of our virtual fair. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to say, this is a unique opportunity, as we've been saying this entire time. But what I want to add to that is it's an opportunity for you to join a group of students who you may not know and experience a culture and a maybe something that is uncomfortable together. And I think it's very important for us to challenge ourselves and to be willing to, look beyond what we know. And this is definitely an opportunity to look beyond what you know. And, it's not just for you as well. As a faculty member, this is me looking beyond what I know too. And so, in essence, we're going to be learning and going on this journey together. And I just hope you will join us. And I really look forward to the opportunity to teach you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We, again, appreciate your time, and we look forward to having additional conversations, additional presentations to make this a reality for our students. Priceless learning opportunity for everybody involved. So
thanks
again. Yep.
All right.